What is it that reviewers or thesis examiners look for in order to decide the quality of a research thesis? This is a question that we will briefly respond to in this presentation. So generally, the review process or the peer review process is an important and integral part of the process of student research that is represented in the form of a thesis. The aim of the peer review is actually to improve the process of research and to give it the requisite authentication that is needed for academic research. Generally, reviews are conducted by experts and senior academics, and reviews generally happen towards the end of the research degree when the students have completed a thesis, and so that thesis needs to be evaluated as part of the degree award process. So the question that we will respond to is, what is it that reviewers look for in a research thesis in order to decide whether the thesis is a successful thesis, a good thesis, or is it something that is unsuccessful or partially successful? So, as we know that the research thesis generally has various sections, the general research thesis in most disciplines has a topic and a preliminary pages section, the introduction section, the literature review section, the methodology section, and the data presentation, analysis, and interpretation section, and the conclusion section. So the first thing that the student researcher needs to make sure is the inclusion of these important sections in the research thesis. Now, the first important thing that the reviewers will look at is the topic. So the topic needs to be interesting. The topic is should be representative of a significant research issue or topic that has been explored. The topic needs to be presented in a concise manner, and it should be a true representative of the issue that has been explored in this particular study. This should then be followed by the quality of the preliminary pages, because again the preliminary pages are the pages that the first pages or the first sections that come under the scrutiny of the reviewer. So the preliminary pages generally include the title pages, and in some cases these include acknowledgement pages. In some cases there might be other pages as well, but this section also has the contents pages and the list of contents, and also in many cases this section has a page that presents the abstract of the study. And so the abstract is again a concise representation of the whole research process. So the abstract should be a very catchy one. It should be a concise, a true representation of the whole research thesis, beginning from the introduction through to the aims and objectives, the methodology, and the main conclusions and implications of the study. This is then followed by the introduction section. So again, the introduction section is a very significant and important. The first main part of the research thesis is the introduction section. And so a good introduction section will help the reviewers in deciding upon the quality of the thesis. Generally, the introduction section has introduction to the topic, a little background of the topic, rationale and significance of the topic. This section also has the research questions and hypotheses and objectives. And lastly, this section generally should have an introduction to the remaining section of the thesis. So again, a well-presented introduction section in a good academic language, plus a section that follows the proper format of the thesis is something that will help, that will assist the research reviewer in deciding the quality of the thesis. Then the next important chapter that generally in many cases research students take for granted and turn it into something like not a very important part of the research thesis is the literature review section. So this is a section that is in many cases presented in a very descriptive way, something like a cut and paste type of exercise of the various concepts and theories that are related to the topic. But this section is very important mainly because it gives detailed background into the issue that has been explored. And so a good literature review section will be something that is a critical analysis of the background, the theories, the concepts related to the topic, and it is something that gives adequate and in-depth analysis related to the particular topic that has been explored. So a well-presented, logically organized, critically analyzed literature review section is something that will help the research reviewer in deciding upon the quality of the research process. Then comes the research methodology section. The research methodology section is again a very important section, perhaps the most important section, mainly because the research students are expected to indicate their understanding in order to become independent researchers in the future. And so that's why the research methodology section is very important. So the student researchers need to indicate a good knowledge and understanding of the research methodology. Generally, the research methodology should have subsections related to the relevance and rationalization of the research methodology, the research design, the particular research paradigm. It should also have sections related to the samples or the sampling process, the data collection and analysis processes, and the ethical considerations, the validity and reliability of the research need to be included in this section. Again, language presentation and the concise presentation of this section or this chapter is very important. Then comes the data presentation and analysis and interpretation section, or chapter 4 generally in thesis. Again, this is, you can say, the product of the whole research exercise. So this product should be presented again in a logically organized manner in line with the research objectives and research questions. This chapter needs to be precise related to the particular findings. If for example, if it is quantitative research, there should be proper analysis, statistical analysis presented in precise tabular forms. And if it has qualitative data, there should be thematic analysis with evidence. And again, this section needs to be clearly organized in line with the main research objectives, and it should be free of language and presentation errors. The last section, or the conclusion section, is very important. Perhaps this is something you can say the fruit of the whole research process. So again, the conclusion section or the conclusion chapter should have in the beginning a general summary of the whole research process. Then it should have a concise presentation of the main findings and conclusions and recommendations of the study. And there should also be, in good research thesis, there is a section that indicates areas for further exploration or further research. Towards this chapter, there is generally the references section. Again, the references should be correct, both in terms of their representation in the thesis or inside in-text citation, and also in line with the particular format of referencing that has been that needs to be taken into consideration. And lastly, there should be a section that generally is called the appendices section. In the appendices section, what happens is that all the material that the researcher thinks is important, that is not a part of the main thesis, but that can help the reader in understanding the background, and it can aid to further insights to or it can help or assist in the process of understanding the research with its background. That is called the appendices section. So generally the appendices sections should include things like the research instrument or further details related to the sample or other material or documents that can actually help the reader in understanding the background of the research better. So these are the main sections that need to be included in the research thesis, and this is how this logical presentation of these various sections of the thesis that are clearly connected with each other, and there is an overall logical organization in the various sections and subsections of the thesis. This is something that will have a very positive impact on the reviewers in terms of deciding the success of the research thesis.